Hey guys, this is Andrei. I'm a certified translator and a real estate concierge. My company has been relocating people from across the world down here to Belarus over the last 3 years. Today the sun is not there yet, so we're trying out a new camera and hopefully the light and sound will be just as good as before. And today we're talking about customer support, a pretty vital thing once you've relocated here. After one moves over here, it turns out that a translator, certified or not, may, with the cultural knowledge of how things go and how matters can be resolved, and with some technical knowledge as well, not necessarily just legal knowledge, may be pretty helpful, and sometimes I find myself helpful to the clients and the people whose support for my channel I appreciate. The people who never supported my channel and never booked my services are not getting any client support, whether or not they're willing to pay for it, because, well, I just don't like it. The first case we're going to discuss is quite easy. A guy was driving his car. He parked closer than 15 meters to the crossing, which is against the rules. 15 meters to the street crossing, 15 meters to the crossroads, and a few other things. Bus stop, there are no parking areas, which is a bit tricky to observe in Minsk with 2 million people and like half a million plus cars. Although it's a spread out city and we shouldn't complain comparing to the middle-aged cities of Europe, ours is quite parking fit, but still there are too many cars, there are too few parking spaces. By the way, government's gonna make mandatory payments for those. Now they're kind of voluntary, so all the paid parkings are stuck with cars of the people who never pay. But here is the deal. My client parks in the wrong place. He walks away for shopping. I imagine he never left a card with a phone on the dashboard, which normally sensible people do for the sake of being warned about anything like accident, evacuation or something. The car gets towed away by law. He's a positive American guy, a family man and everything. I respect his efforts over here. So when he called me, I was driving a car from Vitebsk and saying that the car is gone, what should I do, and so on and so forth. Later he located it at the penalty parking, and knowing a little bit about the traffic rules, my fair share, but I'm not an expert, but I know a few. The law is there for somebody whose car got towed away for a violation. Normally that's done for a violation. The car must be handed over back to the owner on the first request without necessarily paying the services of the parking lot, or without necessarily paying for the fine according to the police ruling. The police will launch an administrative case and basically it will finalize with some sort of a persecution measure, be that a warning or a fine. We'll probably discuss that earlier, like fines and crimes video. So they never gave him the car back. Again, it doesn't really take to be a lawyer to read in the book the words, the car must be returned to the driver or his legal representative. By the way, this technical wrinkle was never a problem, but I would again accent the need for the relatives to have a full power of attorney in each other's names, because if a husband shows up with the keys of the wife's car that he purchased quite generously, they can tell him to basically. So there he is at the penalty parking. The receptionist, so to speak, says, no, I won't give you anything without the cop returning and finalizing the case. And the manager of the parking was saying the same, appealing to the proceeding code, or process code, administrative process code, saying that they are responsible for the car storage. And although there is this ruling by the Council of Ministers saying the car must be returned on the first request, they're not going to do that until the cop comes back and finalizes the case. The cop was even worse. He failed to explain what ruling, that Council of Ministry ruling or Act number 986 was it, was regulating the technicalities of technical steps of the car being towed away, being returned. He just said, no, I don't know about this. Which way he violated another law, but that's a different story, and we have no complaints or issues related to that, at least not yet. Obviously, my client is a law-abiding guy and he's not making a fuss out of things like this, but having come from the hospitality industry here in Belarus, I kind of lost this industry in 2020, and now that I have my only trade, relocating people here, telling them this is the country of law and democracy, and somebody should laugh out there behind the frame here. The point is, it must work. Whatever says on the paper, it must work, at least for my clients, and I'll do my best, even over the payment. Payment grade, I think, is the term, to get it done and get them feel comfortable, protected by the law, because, well, they're law-abiding people, they're good people. So technically I'm a witness in this situation, and I can report a misdemeanor by the parking lot, which somebody will have to investigate to tell me whether or not they exceeded their powers, which they pretty much did according to how I see the situation, because as they told me, the car comes into the parking lot with a clear violation list, basically explaining what was done, and basically it must be obvious that the car will be returned to the guy who comes over and even not pays the fine. But like hell it was, they were pretty bent, and when I came to the office, the lawyer guy of the parking lot, which deserves its own video, but it's not my channel theme yet, the lawyer said, no, we did everything right, there is this code, the code is above the act, and the act just says, yeah, give it back on the first request, which still breaks my logic sense, because if the first request was placed and it's not necessarily to pay the fine or to pay the services, so to speak, of the parking lot, why do they keep the car? This is still unclear to me. So far I've lodged the requests to the traffic police, which replies were not making me any happy, and the Council of Ministers, which just footballed my request to the traffic police. So in a few days' time I'll have a charming explanation of the cops that traffic penalty parking did everything by the book, just the way they see it. How lawmakers can explain how their law works will probably require an extra effort, so this is how it worked. This is something we're going to track. This is something you can share your feedback under the video here, and this is somewhere to illustrate how important it may be to have a certified translator working on your side if there is some kind of a legal issue, which is not really an issue but a wrinkle, and how to navigate and how to make bureaucrats remember about the existing laws and trying to push them through. That's story number one. Case number two was considerably more colorful. It deals with immigration. It happened on Saturday as my client came to register himself in a new apartment. And it's like a long-term client. He's not really having any projects with me, but this is the guy we have a kind of a connection with, and he asked me for help when all his traditional ways and friends failed. He came to register himself to a new address, having spent a month here, 90 days maximum. He relocated from a hotel to a new apartment, and with an apartment contract which takes 3 days to produce, keep that in mind. In 90% cases they take 3 days to certify the contract. He comes to the migration office and tries to get registered. On Friday he failed, 2 hours waiting, nothing. They have too many Asians now applying for workforce temporary permits, and he comes on Saturday morning. It's a bit hard to operate in a station which is not your regular station, where you know nobody and where you just can talk smart things, and sometimes you may be heard. So I have less experience in that, but still one more from Saturday. The big boss was absent. She will be there tomorrow, so I'll definitely pay a visit to talk about the guy's behavior. So the law was never explained to us. Nobody opened the book and said guys, here it is written down clearly in Russian, that was your fault and there comes your fine, for which we have no objections, and I explained that. Instead, as I tried to refer to different acts, I was asked if I'm a translator. Normally from the cops it sounds like a threat. They asked if I was threatening them, which I was not, of course, because I have some sense. And in the end they were asking me if I was recording them, because I was holding my phone like this, and it seemed to them I was doing illegal voice recording, which I also have sense not to. By law, one has 3 working days to register at the new address once they change their address after the first 10 days of the original stay. So 28th of August was the day of his checkout from the hotel. 29th, 30th, 31st, that was Saturday, was the 3rd working day, so he came on time, except the girl in the room said he was not on time, and she was not particularly cooperative or diplomatic with his guy who spoke some Russian to her, trying to explain the thing. I'm not sure if the landlord actually was trying to protect his contract and his client, but apparently not, because he rings me at 8:30 as I was rolling from another migration office 1 hour away in my area, and he was explaining me the situation. My guy is not exactly a tourist, so when it comes to a fine, he knows more or less what is going on. So he identified the situation as such, and basically speaking, he interpreted the events to me as fine. Oncoming, I put the cop on the speaker. It's important to call on the phone, not on the bloody app, for the better hearing, by the way, in a critical situation. And the cop agreed to put the case on the side while the translator is making his way. So I came there about 1 hour later. The fun starts normally when I come into a room and there are two busy guys. Guys are not necessarily better than girls. It's always hard to tell which is which when they don't remember how the book works. But the law is still clear and simple to me. And as I was rolling on a Saturday morning, it's hard to conduct an investigation at the wheel. I clarified with at least two colleagues of the officers that the re-registration at the new address may occur within 3 working days, just like it says in the law, literally, without any wrinkles, any comments, any side-like indications. There might some other trick may be buried in there. But one of the officers says there is a violation, and as I'm trying to find out what kind of violation it is, we are upping the tones, of course, and the guy next to him turned out to be the deputy officer of the station, like second biggest guy in the station, or at least so he thinks. The man was explaining to me, without explaining much, that I must step out into the corridor and they will finish processing some Indonesian guys, and we have violated the law. But when I asked to specifically show me a book and a line where it says we violated this and this, as grown-up people do in a place like this, I was asked to step out and study the law, so which I more or less complied with. I'm trying to be optimistic to see if we're going to apply now. And I realized that my client has not really done anything about his paperwork. The form isn't filled, the fee isn't paid. He has his grand American bank account, which is worthless, in a place which is kind of outlying from anything. So to pay 40 rubles, you either have to have an advanced translator or go to some bank, and that's at least half hour. And with the situation developing like this, his papers will be thrown out of the office and he would do the lining up again. And on Saturdays, the office is closed at 13. His insurance that he purchased at the airport to apply for a visa was lost, so neither copies nor anything was available. None was available at his flat. So on the spot, we bought a 1-month insurance, and with, you know, fingers pretty much reflecting my stress level, mostly because of injustice that happens to be the case. I tried to push in his credentials into the online registration form, which now works off the phone, by the way, and we succeeded. So as the officer actually walked out of the room, handed me his passport, saying, "Yeah, we made a call, you can continue." We continued, and we basically did it online without having to sweat and blush over all the things I just listed. The homework wasn't done, and basically they would have been very happy to push it all out of the office and give us a little lecture about getting prepared. The guy at least had his rental contract copied, but that was not enough. It was 1 point out of 4 you have to bring to the migration office. Well, I had a quick chat, a quick word with the deputy guy. After the return of the passport, I stepped into the room asking if they could possibly comment on what just happened, like indicating not necessarily an apology, but some kind of a diplomatic way of parting, and like both parties understanding that where they were a little bit like aggressive or illiterate or something like this, which you don't expect from grown-up cops to voice. Only once in my life I lodged an official complaint against an official, and that was second biggest guy in a different migration office soon after he retired, but I don't tend to relate our nervous conversation to this career upgrade of his. And tomorrow I think I'm gonna pay a visit to the office boss and ask how she may be feeling about the conduct of her colleague in a professional context. Because on top of being unable to count to 3, I think the deputy chief of the station must have some kind of a skill to resolve whatever issues his staff is creating with the clients. The clients are not always right, but in this very specific case we were 100% right. And the obvious conclusion by far is the bureaucrats are bureaucratic, and it really pays to have an advanced translator on your side. The guy who will not be just rumbling whatever the parties are talking to each other, but the guy who is gonna push your rights through. Of course, not super aggressively. Otherwise, it could end up ill for both parties. Thanks for watching my channel. Thank you for your support. $1 is better than 1 like. $5 are better than 5 likes. In any case, $5 or $10 is just enough to upkeep my feeling of the content channel being necessary and to invest into the metal and sound and the picture. So I hope this couple of stories were entertaining, at least, maybe educational at some point, and your trip to Minsk, your relocation to Minsk will not be, let's say, marred by any occasions like this. And if something happens, you know where to find me. Hope to see you in Minsk at some point for a coffee, for a consultancy, that these things could be combined. And cheers from Minsk. See you later.